Vegas residents know hard work, but you don't have to do it all yourself. TaskRabbit has been helping locals in the Neon City for over a decade with everything from furniture assembly to minor home repairs. Don't let that to-do list ruin your weekend. Use the TaskRabbit app to describe what you need and find a skilled tasker in your neighborhood who can help take it off your plate. And the best part, transparent pricing. You'll see the hourly rate up front, which includes the tasker's rate and the service fee as well, so there are no surprises at checkout. So, download the TaskRabbit app or visit TaskRabbit.com today to get those home to-dos crossed off. What if we told you one of this year's most contentious elections was a Henderson City Council race? That's right, and now a three-way primary featuring bad blood, secret recordings, and yes, real city issues could head down to the wire this June. Today on CityCast Las Vegas, we sit down with reporter Una Milliken from the Nevada Independent to find out how Henderson's Ward 3 became the center of the primary universe in the messiest way possible. It's Wednesday, April 22nd. I'm Jesse Merrick, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. All right, Una, thank you for joining us. How are we doing today?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. I'm excited for today's discussion. This one seems that's going to be really interesting, okay? So let's just start this off, because the real question in this one is, like, is this the messiest year in Henderson's politics? Because it seems like it's pretty wild from the outside looking in.
Well, Henderson has had messy years. I would not say this is even the messiest year in Henderson. I think last year
That's saying something.
a lot of stuff happened. But I mean, definitely this election is messy, and I think it's going to be interesting to watch and see what happens and how it plays out.
Definitely. And look, we're going to be getting into the race that, you've called one of the most watched ones for sure, that Ward 3, the city council seat race there. For the listeners, though, let's give them some context here on the incumbent Carrie Cox. Why is she such a lightning rod candidate?
Carrie is an outsider politically, and she doesn't have a background in politics. And I think that's kind of become a part of her identity throughout her entire tenure on the city council, where she's kind of defined herself as someone who's not entrenched in like local politics and what she kind of characterizes people as like these corrupt politicians who are, taking bribes and in the pockets of big development and stuff like that. In some ways, she's almost like a populist candidate in the way that she's describing herself, but then she also has these like public spats with various people on city council as well as the mayor. So she's just like very controversial, very fiery, and chatting with her, you kind of get that immediately. But yeah, she's definitely a lightning rod.
Yeah, well, there was also a recording scandal as well that was going on, correct?
Yeah, so Cox was hiding behind like a curtain and was recording her colleague Monica Larson in conversation with another person. I think it was a retirement party. And she at one point like jumps out from behind a curtain, is like, "I was recording you." And Monica Larson went to the police. And there was a whole investigation. And in summer of 2025, police confiscated Carrie Cox's phone and they found the recording and yada, yada, yada. And then so she was charged with a felony in, I think it was November. But obviously that was just a charge. Nothing's been set in stone yet, which she will frequently emphasize. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, and like just to clarify on this one too, I mean, she seems like she's had, a lot of beefs and seemingly is beefing with kind of everybody on the rest of the council, correct? I mean, that wasn't just kind of a one-off thing?
Well, her and Monica Larson have a complicated relationship where she was supportive of Monica at first, and then they kind of had a falling out. And similarly, this is all in Carrie's own words. She was also friendly with Mayor Michelle Romero before, and then they kind of, when they started working together, started having some fights. She's also alleged that another councilman, they got into a physical altercation on the city council. But it was like during a break on the city council. Mm-hmm. And that was with Jim Seebach. So there's been like continuous fights. But I will say, so during Carrie Cox was censured, but during that city council hearing, many people came out in support of her and spoke out in support. So she also is very popular from what it seems, at least from the people that came out to support her on city council. And those were just residents who came out to speak. So, I mean, who knows what voters will decide? I could see it going many different ways. Carrie Cox is not the establishment favorite. Annette Dawson-Owens is, who's been endorsed by the mayor and all the rest of the city council. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, actually.
Yeah, it's going to be very intriguing to watch. I mean, again, we could probably just do a whole docuseries just on Cox and her tenure thus far, but obviously the race itself is what's the most interesting here. So before we really do start to dive into more of that, we talked about Cox. Who are the other two candidates that are running, right now?
So we've got Annette Dawson-Owens, who I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
She has a background in education. She's not born in Henderson, but like has lived in Henderson her entire life and has like a father who's a judge and is just very entrenched in the community. She's also was appointed to the State Board of Education by Governor Joe Lombardo, and she's served on several education boards, and she has like been a policy director at a children's advocacy nonprofit. So she has like a strong background in education, and that's kind of her main background. And Jennifer Atlas she's a little bit younger than the other two. She is initially from Colorado. She's run for a legislative position in 2024 and she did not win, but she kind of like moved to Vegas and worked in the casinos as a entertainer. So she has like kind of a background in labor, and then she worked in entertainment more broadly, and now she works in healthcare advocacy, and she worked on a bill, I think it was last year or the year before, that kind of dealt with pregnant women and their enrollment in Medicare and Medicaid. So now she kind of works more in healthcare advocacy. I mean, they're all actually quite different, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, well, so now we have the background on the three players there. Like you said, very diverse backgrounds for the three of them coming from totally different areas. So that begs the question, too, of like with that and there kind of, I guess, maybe being no really clear favorite, correct me if I'm wrong there. But what makes this such a tight primary, with the three of them in the mix here?
I mean, Henderson is a big city, but it's also not, it's not Clark County. It's not Las Vegas. It is a bit smaller. Mm-hmm. So maybe there hasn't been that much attention on it before, but now there is because of kind of like all the controversy that's happened. I think like people, despite a lot of the things that have happened on the council, I do think that there are people who really enjoy Carrie Cox's outsider status as a her kind of pitting herself as a non-politician. When I interviewed her most recently, she was just like, yeah, I stand for the people, and like very like populist messaging kind of. And I think in contrast, Annette Dawson-Owens is a little bit more serious, maybe. She doesn't really have controversies like Cox does. But she is also like endorsed by the city council and the mayor. And like people do, at least from some local people that I've spoken to, do have a little bit of a distrust in the Henderson government. They've had, some ethics committee violations in the past where there was a former council member who was ousted. And there's been general like controversies even before Cox that I think complicate Henderson's kind of perception. So I think maybe some people do enjoy that she's kind of out separate from that. Mm-hmm. And then Atlas, it is a nonpartisan race, but she's a Democrat and the other two are Republicans. She's younger. She could be interesting to voters who are maybe like looking for something a little bit different. But I mean, I do think probably just because of name recognition, it probably will fall to either Cox or Owens, but we'll see.
Gotcha. Okay. Have the candidates actually focused much on the issues themselves, or has it been that kind of character-focused attacks back and forth that we sometimes see in politics?
It is. Okay, so the thing about city council, it is a small position. They only have so much power. And Henderson is also one of the safest cities in the country. So, they're limited on what they can tackle and what issues are even facing Henderson residents. But I mean, a lot of people, everyone was talking about affordability and kind of easing people's costs right now in whatever way they could. Immigration is a huge issue right now in Henderson because the Henderson jail has a contract with ICE where they allocate a certain number of beds for detainees to be held. And there was like a huge push earlier this year for Henderson to kind of renegotiate or discontinue this contract. And they are in the renegotiation process. I know that Carrie told me that she couldn't talk about it openly because they're still in renegotiation. That is a big one. And the only person who said that we shouldn't continue it is Atlas. The rest, Cox said she wants to support law enforcement, and that is what Owens said also. So that was a little bit of a non-answer from the both of them, but they just said upholding federal law. Owens was clear that she wanted to support, she appreciates immigrants, but she wanted to just support federal law. But Atlas was the only person that was saying that maybe this contract isn't serving us as much. I also talked to them about education. Henderson has considered breaking away and becoming their own school district just because CCSD is so big. Cox is in support of that. Owens, I think, she is maybe more kind of cognizant of what that would take because it would be really complicated. And she was saying that she understands why people are frustrated, but it's ultimately not up to Henderson. It would be a state legislative issue that would take multiple rounds of votes to implement. And then, I talked to them a little bit about public safety. Again, like I said, Henderson's a really safe city. Crime has fallen, not just in Henderson, but across the county. And they talked generally about supporting law enforcement. Cox specifically talked about making sure that Henderson police are paid well. They have been recently going through the negotiation with the union in the city to get compensated. And now recently they passed a new salary increase, which makes them much more well paid than they were before.
Zenleaf Las Vegas is celebrating more than just 420. This year marks a major milestone, and Zenleaf Las Vegas is celebrating 10 years in the community with their All In at 10 anniversary event, running May 21st through May 30th. If you're waiting for the right time to come in and check out Zenleaf, this is it, guys, because over 10 days, they'll be featuring daily deals, in-store activations, and partnerships with 10 local organizations, with a portion of the proceeds supporting their impact right here in Las Vegas. It's their way of giving back to the community that supported them for the past decade. Now, whether you're stopping in for the deals, the experience, or just to see what's new, they're here to make it easy, convenient, and worth your time. And get this, if you're really in a hurry, make sure you check out their location off of Flamingo and Fort Apache, which has you covered with a drive-through pickup. How about that? Come find your Zen this 420. Learn more at zenleafdispensaries.com. This year, TEDx Las Vegas 2026 is exploring the theme of past, present, possible, looking at where we've been, where we are, and what's next. The 2-day immersive experience includes tours, panels, experiences, and of course, main stage talks with 19 speakers and performers. Located in beautiful downtown Las Vegas at the AC Hotel and Element Symphony Park, this year's speakers include leaders across art, science, business, and culture as well, giving us not just talks, but ideas designed to shift your perspective. These talks are designed as a fully immersive experience that goes beyond the stage, including art, community activations, and curated programming throughout the footprint. This event is coming soon, and tickets are limited, so use the code JOINUS, that's JOINUS, for $25 off. TEDx Las Vegas 2026, past, present, possible, May 2nd and May 3rd in downtown Las Vegas. Get your tickets now at TEDxLasVegas.org. Overall, though, too, local races as a whole are non-partisan, but these candidates technically are still registered with one party or the other. So with so much of local politics becoming nationalized, is there any sense that that could happen here in Henderson?
I think the way we see that play out is what I was just mentioning with the ICE contract. Owens and Cox are both Republicans, and they're kind of a little bit softer on this contract versus Atlas is a Democrat, and she's kind of questioning this ICE contract. The thing with Henderson, and I've actually been asked this by my editors at times, it's is there some sort of split between these are Democrats and these are Republicans? But prior to Atlas, and currently right now, I believe everyone on the city council is a registered Republican. So it's actually partisan. Yeah, partisan politics are not really a concern. It's actually purely personal, which is kind of interesting if you think about it, because it's not the same across the country. But yeah, most issues, in fact, I would say all issues related to this are kind of just come down to personal ideology or infighting or nuances in how they approach different issues.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned the fact that, the whole council is Republicans. Why is it that Republicans have an easier time getting elected to these city councils, seats, specifically in Henderson too, I guess?
This would all be speculation. Henderson's population is a little bit older. I think a little bit wealthier in certain parts.
Depending on where you're at, yeah.
I think Henderson is just a little bit more conservative overall if you compare it to other cities in the county. I guess you can look at it like Jim Gibson, he's the former Henderson mayor. He's a Democrat. He's the county commission representative. So, he's a Democrat, and he was formerly sitting as a mayor.
How does this race in particular, though, in Ward 3 compare to the mayor's race? The other Henderson City Council race, which is actually on the ballot.
Yeah, so The mayor's race is interesting because it's an incumbent, and then there's a police chief who was ousted from her position. So it's kind of like this like scorned police chief running against the incumbent mayor. And there's also a more progressive candidate, a Democrat, Adam Price, who's also running, who's interesting. But I mean, the thing about the mayor's race that is less interesting than this race is that I don't think it's very close. If you look at like the numbers if you look at it in fundraising, Michelle Romero has outraised the other two candidates with a lot. I mean, obviously, that's not to say that is the only indicator of someone winning. Carrie Cox was outraised by her opponent in her first election. I mean, it's not the only indicator, but I will say that I just don't think it's going to be as close. Just in terms of name recognition, Romero she has run the city for the past 4 years. She has some really high-profile endorsements, and I think she's just generally pretty known on the politics stage. I just don't think it's as close of a race, really.
Yeah, and it's just so fascinating. I wonder, and I know politics sometimes can get very messy in a lot of places, but it seems like here in Southern Nevada, each and every race, it's like, ooh, there's some drama here, there's some controversy here, and all this stuff. Why is it that it's Southern Nevada? I guess we just seem to attract that with politicians.
There's a lot of like fast moving money in this city. Like, obviously, there's a mob history in the city.
Yeah, true.
Not anymore. I mean, Henderson and Southern Nevada politics are really, if you get into it, there's a lot of exciting things to watch. A lot of drama.
Yeah, you love to see it. It makes it interesting at the very least. Obviously, we will all be having our popcorn ready, watching this race in Ward 3 play out. It is just so interesting there. But, also, too, I'm curious, too, like what you think, I guess, the listeners should be watching most as it relates to kind of this conversation we've had today here.
I think voters should be looking out for whatever candidate they think speaks most closely to the issues that they're interested in, and kind of maybe cutting through the noise and looking at what people are actually saying.
That's so important to be able to do that, yeah.
Yeah, for listeners more broadly, I mean, I do think that people in Henderson are really frustrated with the public discourse in this seat and this race and the city council. And, people have called it an embarrassment, shameful. I mean, like, it's not, a lot of residents think it's kind of embarrassing. So I think if that is how you feel, either about Henderson or another candidate that you see in a Southern Nevada seat, you should show up and vote and try to kind of elect someone that you would be more proud of. That would be what I would say, and pay attention to what people are really saying in terms of like the issues that they care about.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Like, pay attention and sift through all the noise of it all, and hopefully we helped answer some questions for folks here, today on CityCast Las Vegas. Una, thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Rate the show, leave us a review too, and subscribe to our free morning newsletter. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Until then, take care.